Mangwana Nimwalelepo Fukenja Niklekwas Vanave Africa. Welcome to Africa Good Morning, the news and current affairs show bringing you everything you need to know happening on the African continent and beyond. You are joined by Ashwin Berry. These are some of the top stories we'll be looking at. Eastern Cape gets South Africa's first contraception kit and HIV machine. Now the US Embassy donates $250,000 towards the renovation of the outer Festa building that is in Windhoek, and Mozambicans in South Africa submit requests for documents. Stay with us as we head into the top stories shortly. We start the top stories in South Africa, where Eastern Cape gets South Africa's first contraception and HIV kit vending machine. The handover and launch will be conducted by the Deputy Minister of Health, Dr. Sibongiseni Dhlomo, together with the Eastern Cape MEC for Health, Nomakosazana Meth. Dhlomo and Meth will also oversee the actual demonstration to the public of how these vending machines will work. According to National Health Department spokesperson Foster Mohale, the vending machine is the first of its kind in South Africa. This initiative is targeting girls and women of childbearing to increase access to sexual reproductive health and HIV prevention services, Mohale explained. It is also to reduce unplanned pregnancies which lead to unsafe abortion. Now, Eastern Cape Health Department spokesperson Sizwe Kopelo said the Deputy Minister and the MEC will oversee the actual demonstration to the public of how the vending machines will work. Now, in Namibia, the U.S. Ambassador to Namibia, Randy Berry, announced the donation of $250,000 equivalent to $4,662,500 Namibian to the Namibia Craft Center for the renovation and repurposing of the historic Outer Festa building. Have a look.
It's my deepest honor to announce the award of the Ambassador's Fund for Cultural Preservation, totaling $250,000 US to the Namibia Craft Center. This grant has been allotted for the renovation of the Alta Fest, a recognized cultural heritage site that is under the custodianship and care of the Ministry of Education, Arts, and Culture. Just a word about the program. The U.S. Department of State created the Ambassador's Fund for Cultural Preservation in order to support cultural projects across the globe. The AFCP, as we call it in shorthand, protects and preserves not only historical buildings like this one, but also has been used in the past to preserve artifacts, to preserve archaeological sites, but also to preserve language, ceremonies, and customs of indigenous peoples all around the world. Reiterating the sentiments voiced by a former colleague of mine, the Assistant Secretary for Education and Cultural Affairs, Patricia Harrison, the AFCP allows us, the United States, to show another side of our country, one that recognizes the contributions of culture, that values it in all countries, because we understand that this enriches us all. Heritage preservation allows us to work closely with our international partners to affirm our respect for other cultures as we jointly identify areas of critical need for preservation. The Ambassador's Fund for Cultural Preservation successfully demonstrates, I believe, in concrete, visible, tangible ways, my own government's commitment to understanding and preserving not only our own heritage, but the heritage of others.
Continuing with the top stories, approximately 170 Mozambicans from the South African province of Western Cape have submitted requests for biometric identification and travel documents. Teams from the National Directorate of Civil Identification and Migration of Mozambique worked in Cape Town from last Saturday to Monday. The presence of these teams is part of the deployment of the civil registration campaign for Mozambicans in the diaspora, launched by the Minister of Justice, Constitutional and Religious Affairs, Helena Kida, in December last year in Cape Town. The Mozambican ambassador to South Africa, Maria Manuela Lucas, assured in a recent meeting with Mozambicans in Soshanguve on the outskirts of Pretoria that the brigades from the Civil Registration and Migration Directorates will visit all provinces of the land of Rand. Now, most of Liberia's 29 senators approved the creation of a War and Economic Crimes Court on 9 April, 20 years after the bloodiest conflict in the West African country's history. Before approval, the bill had stirred controversy as some former warlords have held elective positions in the Senate. The pro tempore of the Liberian state, Senator Nyonbli Kagna Lawrence, said there must be justice and accountability for both the victims of the wars and the perpetrators. According to her, establishing is for us a necessary and critical step for a formal closure to the terrible memories left behind, protecting the peace and encouraging the people's confidence in the rule of law and the administration of justice in our country, she also said. Now, Nigeria is seeking Interpol's help to arrest 3 suspects who allegedly stole $6.2 million from the central bank using the forged signature of then-President Muhammadu Buhari. Authorities believe that the suspects conspired with Nigeria's former central bank chief, Godwin Emefiele. He is already on trial on 20 charges, including illegally receiving $6.2 million. Now, Emefiele has denied all the charges and is currently out on bail. He is the most high-profile former official to be charged with corruption since President Bola Tinubu took office last May. Prosecutors also allege that Emefiele unlawfully authorized the release of the money from the central bank vault. In a statement last December, he described the allegations as barefaced lies told by the investigator to achieve his satanic agenda. All right, those have been our top stories on Africa Good Morning. After the break, we're going to be breaking down the ZiG, which is the new Zimbabwean gold-backed currency, with Talent Gore.
Hello, Namibia. Ons is by die kus en ons is lit.
By the Easter shot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so extremely. Yes, please. Today you make sure that we are fed. Sorry, ekasi.
All right, it's time for us to talk to Talent Gore. Talent Uwamkase.
Tamka Mamkau, Mamkase Africa.
Tamuka here. So Zimbabwe announced the ZiG, which is the gold-backed currency, earlier last week, but there is a bit of a twist. It's actually going to come into use as of the 30th of April. Until then, it's the Zimbabwe dollar, which has lost a lot of value being in use now. Where the twist actually comes is when folks are refusing to use the old currency because it's already been announced that it's not going to be used, yet no one actually has the new currency. Please explain this dilemma further.
Yes, so right now in Zimbabwe, people can't use their Zimbabwean dollar, their RTGS or their bond notes, which we were using before the and that they were going to introduce a new currency. But as of now, we can't, the Zimbabwe gold hasn't started circulating because the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe said that it is going to start being in use by April 30. So right now, people are supposed to be using the Zimbabwean dollar, but businesses, everyone right now is refusing to accept the Zimbabwean dollar. They're saying that it's no longer in use. We don't want them if you give us that money, where do you want us to go and use it? So right now there is chaos. You find out that banks, even for the past, since the announcement that they were going to be using the ZIG, banks have not been operating. They had closed down. If you wanted to take your United States dollar or even Zimbabwean dollar, they were saying that you can't do that because they were transitioning from the Zimbabwean dollar to the Zimbabwean gold, which is the ZIG, which is going to be used in by April 30. So there was a bit of confusion rather. Right now, we can actually say that people are being held at hostage because they can't use their money. We have money in our banks, the Zimbabwean dollars, we have bond notes which we were using, but they don't want that. They're saying that people should come with their United States dollar. You know, some people were not earning in United States dollar, earning in Zimbabwean dollar, but they can't go to the supermarket. They can't go into the to the vendors rather. They can't board a transport to and from work because they do not have the ZIG or because they do not have the ZIG, which people now want. You find out that in combis, rather, combis, that is the public transport, the commuters, they're refusing the ZIG. They're saying that want to go, you have to give us $1. But there are some places which cost at 50 cents, and for change, you have to be given a bond. They're refusing to accept the bond not, and they're saying that we are not going to give you the bond not. I know that most commuters now they're saying that if you're going to town, you have to be with another person so that you use your dollar. If you don't have, you're just going to pay $1 for going to town. We can't give you change because we don't have. So right now, the police and the Consumer Protection Unit in Zimbabwe, they have launched a blitz to try and arrest businesses and entities that using to accept the Zimbabwean dollar. So we're just going to be monitoring the situation as of today to see what the Reserve Bank is saying in connection with that. The Reserve Bank governor last 2 days ago said that the Zimbabwean dollar was still in use. People should use that money because it was still a legal tender in Zimbabwe for domestic transactions. But in as much as is saying that the public, the people, they're saying that no, we don't want the Zimbabwean dollar anymore because we don't know where they're going to put it. The banks are closed. They're saying that they're upgrading their systems to the Zimbabwean gold. So we can't accept a tender that most people are now refusing. So that is what is happening in Zimbabwe as of now.
It's very interesting, Talent, and it's hard to ignore the idea or the possibility of an oversight there, a little impulsiveness from the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe, because you're always aware that whatever news happens in the country, sometimes involving the president, other individuals, it affects the market. So you're aware that any single time that you unroll any economic news, it affects the market. So you know how that works internationally, and certainly domestically, you would have known that upon announcement, people would want to immediately start making adjustments now to then, as you said, hold people hostage to a currency that you are phasing out makes things a little more difficult for Zimbabweans. But we will be keeping an eye on that and certainly hoping to get some answers from the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe. But we've got everything we need from you. Thank you, Talent Gore.
Welcome. Thank you very much for having me.
It's always good to have Talent on Africa. Good morning. Let's head over to the weather just before we return with economic news. Now, Kenyan doctors held new demonstrations earlier in the week in their push for better pay and working conditions. The doctors are demanding a commitment from the government to fulfill collective bargaining agreements signed in 2017. But President William Ruto says the country has no money to pay the doctors and asked them to return to work. Thousands of striking doctors and medical trainees chanted, "The Doctors United shall never be defeated," as they protested outside the Kenyan parliament. Led by officials of Kenya's main healthcare professionals union, the doctors want the government to honor the agreement. The government has not implemented critical components of this collective bargaining agreement, and instead they've begun to violate it outrightly, said Davji Atela, Secretary General of the Kenya Medical Practitioners, Pharmacists and Dentists Union. Now in South Africa, the Democratic Alliance has won its court against the Electoral Commission of South Africa to have more voting stations for citizens living abroad. The party went to the Electoral Court in February to request the inclusion of all embassies, high commissions and consulates as voting stations for the May 29 elections. SA citizens living in Perth, Australia requested the opening of the honorary consulate as a voting station. However, the High Commission in Canberra said the Perth consulate could not be used for voting as it was not headed by transferred staff from South Africa. The Electoral Court set the IEC's decision aside by confirming the word consulate in the Electoral Act included those headed by honorary consuls. Those have been our economic news stories on Africa. Good morning. Let's head over to the economic indicators just before we come back with sport. We are all seeking connection to each other, to the world, to the spaces we exist in.
Poor sportsmanship right now from the lads.
You might be physically ready, your body is ready, but mentally.
Here's another chance, and it is a goal from Vending.
Sy sê die hy is er aan neergetrek en daai bal het my grond gevat. Ja, hy het grond gevat en is
but just enough next.
Running that mountain up. Okay, so we will be doing this for the mountain climber. More advanced, slightly advanced.
So is jou trolley reg? Want
I love it. I love it. So then
kickstart our countdown at number 5 with this one. Op Netwerk TV se Klets Kompas gesels ons nuus van 'n Maandag tot Donderdag. Ons kyk ook na die weer en meer. Stories wat jou raak en stories wat saak maak.
They've made a mistake in denying me bail, and they've made several other mistakes in many other cases.
The channels that teach us something new or reflect our expression. So it goes beyond switching to the right station. It's about choosing the experience that can adorn the present, dressing it with our tastes as we expand our preferences, because what we are actually connecting to is boundless, limitless human energy. And this is the spirit of NTV.
Good day, everyone. Time for international sports news. Starting off with football news. First, soccer news from the Champions League. And it was probably the top 4 clubs, or some of the top 4 clubs in world football that played in the quarterfinals, and 2 very exciting games that both ended in a draw. It was first Real Madrid. They played at home against Manchester City, and it ended in a 3-3 thriller. And it was evenly poised, and now is evenly poised for the next leg that will be played on the 17th of April. The second leg will be played at the Etihad Stadium, that is the home ground of Manchester City. Also, it was Arsenal that had a home game, and they played against Bayern Munich from Germany, and it was also 2-2 that game ended, and it was only in the 76th minute that it was Arsenal that made it 2-2. That leaves the German team with the advantage going into the second leg, and that second leg will also be played on the 17th of April, and that will be in Munich. It was Harry Kane that scored for Bayern Munich. He used to play for Tottenham Hotspur. He knows the North London side Arsenal very well. And Harry Kane scored in the 32nd minute of the game. That was a penalty. And then it was Alejandro Trossard. He scored. He equalised in the 76th minute for Arsenal to make it 2-2. Then to continue, it is golf news on international sports news. It is the Masters, one of the first majors, or the first major on the men's calendar that will start on Thursday. That will be at Augusta, Georgia. And it is the draw that has been made known. And it is an interesting draw with the 3 balls that was announced. It is the defending champion, John Rahm. He will play with Nick Dunlop of America and Matt Fitzpatrick of England. And then there's 13 players of the Live Golf Breakaway League that will also play in the tournament. And one of the favourites, Cameron Smith of Australia. He will play with Victor Hovland and Wyndham Clark. And then also good news for the spectators, or the patrons as they call them. It is Tiger Woods that will also play in the tournament, and he's paired with Max Homa of the United States and also Jason Day. Then world number 1, Scotty Scheffler, he's also in the tournament. He will play with Xander Schauffele and Rory McIlroy, and it's Rory McIlroy that's trying to win the Grand Slam for the first time. He previously won 3 other majors. He's just missing the Masters to have all 4 majors as a winner. Closing off today's international sports news, it is tennis news. It's a Monte Carlo tennis Masters that's continuing. Number 1 seed, Novak Djokovic, safely through. That was in the round of 64. He beat Roman Sofolin 6-1 and 6-2. And then Alexander Zverev, also too strong for Sepp Orton, 6-3, 6-4. And it is also Sebastian Korda. He had a good result. He beat Alejandro Fokino. He beat him 6-1 and 6-2 comfortably. But a tough game now for Sebastian Korda. He needs to play the world number 2, Yannick Sinner. That will be in the round of 32. That's international sports news for today. Hope you have a great sport day, and we talk international sport again tomorrow. Goodbye.
All right, as we get into the highlights, let's look at some of those UEFA Champions League results from last night. Atletico Madrid got the best of Dortmund at Atletico Madrid 2-1, and in the show of the evening, PSG versus Barcelona, Barcelona triumphing in France 3-2. We'll see how the games go next week. Let's have a look at the highlights from this morning's broadcast. Eastern Cape gets South Africa's first contraception and HIV kit vending machine. Mozambicans in the South African province of Western Cape submit registration applications. Striking Kenyan doctors hold demonstrations in Nairobi. Those have been our stories on Africa. Good morning, Sweraja Kanaka.